Yes boys, welcome back to the channel guys, hope you're all having a good day. I've took my next build into the DLC. This is one of my older builds but I've adapted it slightly, added a couple of new weapons, and this is the first round of invasions that I've done in it so far. I've added the Devonia's Great Hammer. I've been wanting to try this weapon so I was really happy to put it on this build. As well as that, I've got the Sacred Black Steel Great Hammer. That's got the Golden Lands Ash of War in it, so it really suits the theme of the build. As well as this, we've got the Golden Order Greatsword, Marika's Hammer, we've got the Erdtree Great Shield, and then we've got the Cypher Patter. A really good feature with this build is that we've got enough endurance to always be carrying the Erdtree Great Shield in our left hand weapon slot, just for in case we come across any pesky wizards. I've also got the triple Rings of Light on there, as well as Radagon's Rings of Light, and as well as this I've got Wrath of Gold. Both the seals that I'm using on this build both buff the damage on the Golden Ring incantations, so that's really nice for some extra damage against hard ganks. And then I've got the Flock's Canvas Talisman as well as the Shard of Alexander for some out and out more damage. In our flask we've got the Holy Shroud and Crack tier as well as the good old Opaline Heart tier. And our character level is level 200, we've got 60 Vigour and then we've got 50 Strength and 50 Faith. That's the build guys. Like I said, it's the first round of invasions on this iteration of this build, so let's get into the video and see how we get on. So the old version of this build guys was actually called the Golden Crusader, and it was called the Golden Crusader because it was a bit of a big golden tanky boy. We had some much heavier armour than we're wearing now, but with the addition of the Devonia's Great Hammer on this build I had to change the fashion up. I had to put some different armour on because this hammer, this colossal weapon, is ridiculously heavy. I think it costs like 20 weight. I think it's 20 weight overall. And compared to the weapons that I was using before, that is a big increase in weight for the weapon availability. So before, you know, I didn't have that weight to worry about with the weapons. I was carrying the Erdtree Great Shield still, but the general weapons that I was using on this build were nowhere even close to 20 weight. So because of that, I wanted to accommodate to be able to use this hammer whenever I wanted to, so I had to switch the armour out, go to some lighter armour. I'm obviously missing out on some poise and some defences, but it's worth it to be able to use this hammer whenever I want to on the build. Plus I think the fashion on this one looks really good. But I've got a question for you guys. Should I still call this build the Golden Crusader? Do you think that name still suits this build without having the really chunky armour on? Or do you think I could call it something different? I'm not sure. I'm still quite undecided on that one. I think I could probably still call it the Golden Crusader, but I've been thinking if there's any other kind of name I could give to it and kind of redub it, give it a bit of a rebirth, seeing as it does look quite different than it previously did. Let me know in the comments guys. Let's run another round of provide the name for Bertrude. Let's see what you guys come up with. But yeah, I really like this build. I was wanting to use the Devonia's Hammer. I put that on there, and then I also thought that I'd put the Sacred Black Steel Great Hammer on there as well, just because, you know, it's a similar style. That big heavy Great Hammer, hard hitting, holy damage. And then we've got the lighter weapons on this build as well. The Golden Order Greatsword, we've got the Marika's Hammer, and then we've got the Cypher Patter. So, you know, we've got quick weapons, we've got heavy weapons, but they all do holy damage and they all really suit the stats that we're using on this build. So we've got a good selection of weapons. I've said many times in previous videos that I am the world's worst hard swapper, but it is something I will try to do on this build. Having all these weapons available, well, you know, there's only 5 as well as the shield. There's only 5 weapons, so it's not like I've got a big old menu to like shift through to find the weapon that I want. But having this nice selection, as you could see in that invasion there, it was nice to switch to the Cypher Patter to finish that host off. So although I am the world's worst hard swapper, it is something I will try and do on this build. I invaded this guy here. He was a solo host, but it looks like you've got a little bit of a problem there, mate. You've got a Schmeagle problem. You've got a little Schmeagle swinging his little sword at you, and look, there's another little Schmeagle here. Come on, come and kill him. Let's get rid of these Schmeagles, and then we'll have a nice little one-on-one. There we go. That's all the Schmeagles taken care of. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to try and squash you with this big old great hammer. The Ash of War on this thing is quite interesting. It hits really hard if you catch them in it. But the only thing is, they can see it coming from a mile away. Do you know what I mean? It's a very long wind-up, especially if you charge it. And anyone who's kind of got a couple of brain cells going on will see what you're trying to do and just back away from it. But on the occasions where you do manage to catch someone in it, you do a lot of damage. And you'll see in some invasions that I absolutely nuke some people when they run straight into it. And like in that invasion then, he just was on the edge of the explosion. He didn't take the full lot of damage, but he still took a decent amount. So it takes a bit of timing. You've got to think about when you're using it, but it is an Ash of War that is easily avoidable if your opponents are half decent. You could see in that invasion I absolutely deleted those players with Radagon's Rings of Light. I'm using the technique in this video, in this build, using the double seals. I actually started doing that on the last build that I was using, the Lightning Legionnaire. I was using 2 Gravelstone seals to boost the lightning damage of my spells. And it was something that I was never really a fan of before, but having tried it, I'm definitely a fan of it now. It's just really good to have that extra damage with how the game is currently. Everyone's doing so much damage, so much crazy stuff. Ganks can be extremely difficult. Invasions in general can be extremely difficult. So I'm going to start trying to get the most damage out of my spells and incantations whenever I can. I've got to try and level the playing field against hard ganks, and if that means using an extra seal on the build, then at the minute I'm more than willing to do it. And I've just been enjoying the playstyle, guys, so I can't really, I can't complain too much. Like I say, you know, you find out little new things all the time, little things you like doing, little techniques, little playstyles, and that's what that is. It's just a new technique that I'm adapting into my invasions, and it's been working out really well for me. You could see there an example of the Ash of War on this Devonia's Great Hammer. Pretty slow wind up even on an uncharged version. There's loads of time for them to get out of the way if they're not running directly into you. But it's worth throwing out there because if you do catch them in it, you will do a hell of a lot of damage. I've already mentioned that one of the main features of this build is that we've got enough endurance to be carrying the Erdtree Great Shield at all times. Even if I'm not fighting a wizard, you know, I just leave it in that left hand weapon slot and forget about it for that invasion. But it's so good having it there for if you're fighting a wizard or if a hunter turns up who's a wizard, just having the option to get that Erdtree Great Shield out and fire those projectiles back at them, because there's so much stuff in the game at the minute that people like to throw at you. It's just good to have the option to get the Erdtree Great Shield out and play them at their own game. They're not always expecting it either, because I don't usually start the invasions with it out. I like to go into the invasions, see what's happening, see if there's a wizard. As soon as I see that there's a wizard, I get on my toes and I get ready to whip the shield out when I need it. It doesn't always work with the timing, but when you time it right, they fire a projectile. If you just manage to whip that shield out in time and fire it back at them, it's so satisfying. And it's a proper good ego boost as well when you get the timing right and you get some nice damage on that return projectile. So it's a really fun play style, and I've always used it on this build, even in the previous version of it before this version that I've taken into the DLC. It's always been a really fun technique to use. There's still quite a few things I want to add to this build and tweak as we go along. Like I mentioned earlier, it's still in the very early stages of the DLC. I think I've only just entered the first area. I've really not progressed very far at all. I just wanted to pass these weapons over to it, sort the seals out, pass it the new seal, the dry leaf seal, which boosts the Golden Rings of Light incantations. So I passed that over, passed a couple of weapons, and I just wanted to start doing some invasions on it. So like I say, you know, I've only got the first area opened up, so there's still a lot of progress to make into the actual DLC with this build. But there's a couple of incantations, there's 2 or 3 incantations that I definitely want to add to it that are in the DLC. So there will be some more videos coming up with this one. I'm not sure about weapons. There may be some weapons that I might add that are in the DLC, but for now I'm really happy with the weapon selection that I've got on this build. I think the Devonia's hammer and the Black Steel Great Hammer are 2 really good additions. Like I said, the main hammer, the main weapon on this build, sorry, previous to these 2, was actually the Golden Order Greatsword. I love having that available on this build. It's my favourite greatsword in the game. But adding the 2 new hammers gives it something extra, gives it something a bit more hard hitting, especially with the Ashes of War. So I'm not sure if I am going to add the weapons, any more weapons to it, but I will definitely be adding some of the new incantations. So I'm looking forward to progressing the DLC and adding a few of those in as we go along. This invasion was really satisfying. Let me just give you a bit of context to this one. There's 2 absolute schmeagles up in that tower, and they've been there all night. I've invaded them a few times, and you just can't get anywhere near them. They're basically just sitting up there where you can see them there in the background. And as soon as you get anywhere near that ladder, they just shoot big, horrible blue laser beams at you, and they weren't letting anyone get anywhere near them. But I invaded now, and I could see that there's a fellow invader already in. And he obviously knows the score. He goes up. We managed to actually break through the horrible laser beams that they were shooting down, and we can now do some work and hopefully get these 2 out of this tower. It's just dodged the missiles for now. I get a nice bit of damage on the host. I die, but then our fellow invader manages to kill the host, and watch this, it gives him the sweetest point down I have ever seen in my life. Well and truly deserved point down. Get pointed down at. You deserve that if you're going to sit up there in the top of a tower all night and just do the worst ganking technique I've ever seen in my life. This guy had a pretty cool build. He was doing that Death's Knight lightning cosplay. Pretty cool stuff. Really nice armor set. Really cool weapons as well. I think these are really smart, these weapons. If not a little bit oppressive. The twin axes, the Ash of War and the twin axes. This one here is a little bit oppressive. It's obviously very strong. I really like the look of the big axe that he's using. I think that is a really cool weapon. I do like the twin axes as well. I think the Ash of War on it is just a little bit... It's a little bit strong. It's a little bit difficult to fight against. But this was a really good one-on-one. He weren't spamming anything, so I've not got any problems with this guy. This was just a really good one-on-one. He has got a summon in the background there who was staying out of our fight, who was having a one-on-one. But then I got a fellow invader in, so they started fighting in the background. I think the summon actually kills our fellow invader. I don't actually see what happens or how he kills him, but fair play to them both, you know. He manages to kill the invader, but he doesn't come over and gank. He just lets me and this host finish our one-on-one. And he didn't gank initially as well, you know. It was a one-on-one from the start, and he only fighted the other invader once he invaded, so he just gave him something to do while we were fighting. So yeah, respect to these 2. Pretty good invasion overall. You can see there we dashed right into the Ash of War, and then it's just a quick swap to the Cypher Patter, and we finish him off with a running attack there. Really nice invasion, and it was interesting to try and play around the Ash of War on those twin axes, because like I say, you know, it's really aggressive, really fast. It can get in your face, do a lot of damage, so you really have to think about how you approach it with someone using those weapons. Anyway guys, this is the last invasion of the video. Hope you've enjoyed watching. Like I say, you know, there's going to be some new stuff coming with this build, some new incantations, and I'm not sure about the weapons yet. Maybe I might add some weapons to it. I'll have a little think and see what comes up as we're playing along, but I'm going to get into the DLC, open up some more of the map for some new areas to invade, get some of those new incantations, and then get cracking with some more invasions. So keep your eyes out for some following videos on this build. If you're not subscribed guys to the channel, please consider subscribing, it'd really help us out. But either way, thanks for being here, thanks for watching. Look after yourselves guys, look after each other, take it easy, and I'll see you all in the next video.